All right, get ready. Because we are going deep into something I know you're fascinated by.
Yeah.
The science behind happiness. You said some really cool research my way about how we can actually kind of hack our brain chemistry to feel happier. It's almost like we have a happiness switch.
That is a great way to put it. It's really all about, understanding how these brain chemicals, dopamine, serotonin, oxytocin, and endorphins work, how they work in our brains. Yeah. And once we understand that, we can use that to, make ourselves happier.
Exactly. So let's break this down one by one. Let's start with dopamine. Now, in your notes, you mentioned that you're working on a pretty big goal right now.
Yeah.
Dopamine is all about that drive, that motivation to achieve something.
Right.
And the feeling of satisfaction we get when we do.
And it's not just about, those huge wins. Even small victories, those trigger dopamine too, making us feel good and encouraging us to keep going. It's like our brain's own reward system.
Yeah, that's so cool.
Yeah.
And speaking of rewards, this research you sent over, it highlights how we can actually use this dopamine system to help us, feel happier more often.
Right.
It talks about setting small, achievable goals and celebrating every win, no matter how tiny.
What's interesting is that even anticipating those rewards can trigger dopamine. Think about how excited you feel before a vacation or a concert. Your brain's already getting that dopamine hit just thinking about it.
Oh, that makes total sense. So it's like the anticipation is actually a reward itself.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm starting to see how this all works. Now, the research also mentions trying new things as a way to boost dopamine. What's the science behind that?
Well, novelty and exploring are inherently rewarding to our brains. When we do something new, it activates that reward pathway, releasing dopamine, and then we crave more of that feeling, of that new and stimulating experience.
Oh, so it's not just about the achievement itself. It's also about the process of learning and experiencing something new.
Right.
I like that a lot. And hold on. This research also talks about certain foods that can boost dopamine.
Oh, yeah.
What can you tell me about that?
Absolutely. So it turns out that certain foods like bananas, almonds, and you're going to love this, even dark chocolate.
Oh, yeah.
Were full of tyrosine.
Good.
It's an amino acid that basically helps your brain produce more dopamine. So if you're eating these foods, you're giving your brain what it needs to make you feel good.
Okay, I am officially on board with this dopamine boosting power of dark chocolate.
Yes.
So we've got setting goals, we've got trying new things, and yummy snacks.
Yeah.
Any other dopamine hacks we should know about?
Well, one really fascinating thing that the research talks about is the power of visualization.
Okay.
Just by imagining yourself achieving your goals, you can actually trigger that dopamine release. It's like giving your brain a preview of that reward.
Wow.
And that fuels your motivation to make it happen in real life.
It's like you're tricking your brain into feeling happy and motivated. I love it. So dopamine is all about that motivation and reward. But what about those times when we need to chill out, just feel calm?
Yeah.
That's where serotonin comes in.
Right, exactly. Serotonin is often called the, like the mood stabilizer.
Okay.
Because it plays a really big role in regulating our emotions, promoting that sense of calm, helping us feel balanced and content.
And this research mentions the link between low serotonin and people struggling with things like depression and anxiety. It makes it clear how important this chemical is for feeling good, for feeling balanced.
Absolutely. And here's where it gets really interesting.
Okay.
Serotonin is actually synthesized from this amino acid called tryptophan. And interestingly enough, some of the foods that boost dopamine, like those almonds you mentioned, are also great sources of tryptophan. It's all interconnected.
Whoa, that's mind-blowing. Okay, so food plays a role, but what else can we do to boost serotonin naturally?
Well, the research points to some activities that are actually pretty enjoyable. Getting enough sunlight, for example, is super important for producing serotonin.
Okay.
Even just 10 to 20 minutes of sun each day can really make a difference.
That's great to hear,
Yeah.
especially for someone like me who loves being outdoors. Now, the research also mentions exercise
Yes.
as a powerful serotonin booster.
Yeah.
Are there any types of exercise that are better than others?
Cardio, things like running, swimming, cycling, those have all been shown to be really effective at raising those serotonin levels. But yoga is another fantastic option. It's not just about the physical part, it's also about the mindfulness and focus that comes with yoga.
Yeah.
That can have a really calming effect and boost your serotonin.
Oh, so it's like you get a double benefit there.
Exactly.
Physical and mental working together. Okay, now I've always been curious about gratitude journals. And this research mentions practicing gratitude as a way to boost serotonin.
Oh, yeah.
Can you talk more about that?
Absolutely. Gratitude is like a superpower when it comes to happiness. When you focus on the good things in your life, it changes your perspective, reduces stress, and increases that serotonin production.
I really love that idea of a gratitude journal. It's so simple.
Yeah.
It seems so powerful. I'm definitely going to try that out. So we've got sunlight, we've got exercise, and gratitude as serotonin boosters. Anything else?
Well, here's something interesting from the research.
Okay.
It suggests that even just being kind, simple acts of kindness can increase your serotonin levels.
Really?
When we help others, it triggers a release of serotonin, not just in the person we're helping, but in ourselves as well.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
So being kind is good for everyone.
Exactly. It's a win-win.
Okay. So we've talked about dopamine, we've talked about serotonin, but I'm really curious about oxytocin,
Yes.
the so-called love hormone.
Mhm.
What can you tell us about that?
Oxytocin is so fascinating. It's all about connection and bonding and trust.
Yeah.
It's the chemical that makes us feel close to others and want to strengthen our social bonds.
Now, the research I read, it describes it as the cuddle hormone,
Oh.
which I think is adorable.
Yeah.
So it's triggered by physical touch, right?
Yes. Physical touch is a powerful trigger for oxytocin. Think about that warm feeling you get from a hug.
Oh, yeah.
That's oxytocin at work.
I'm definitely a hugger, so I'm all for that.
Yeah.
But are there other ways to boost oxytocin besides cuddling?
Absolutely. Just spending quality time with your loved ones, whether it's friends, family, even our pets.
Right.
That's a great way to boost oxytocin. And it doesn't have to be, these big events or anything. Simple things like sharing a meal,
Yeah.
playing a game, just having a nice conversation can all lead to those feelings of connection and belonging.
I love that. It's about those small, everyday moments that make life good.
Mm-hmm.
Now, this research also mentions acts of kindness as oxytocin boosters.
Yes.
Can you explain that a little bit more?
Sure. So acts of kindness, big or small, can have a huge impact on our oxytocin levels.
Okay.
When we do something kind for someone, it actually triggers a release of oxytocin.
Wow.
In both the giver and the receiver. It creates this really beautiful cycle, strengthening social bonds and, that sense of community.
So being kind is not only good for our own happiness, but it helps spread happiness to others as well.
Exactly. It's like this amazing ripple effect.
That's so cool. And I have to ask, any tips on getting the most out of those oxytocin boosts from acts of kindness?
What's really important is the reason behind the act.
Okay.
When we are being kind out of genuine compassion, that desire to help, that really boosts that oxytocin release. It shouldn't be about obligation or getting something in return. It should be about being loving and generous.
I love that. Okay, we've covered dopamine, we've covered serotonin, we've covered oxytocin. Let's talk about endorphins.
Yes.
These are the chemicals that give us that runner's high feeling, right?
That's right. Endorphins are our body's natural painkillers and mood boosters. They're released in response to things like pain or stress or even intense exercise.
Okay.
And they help us deal with discomfort and can even create this feeling of euphoria.
Now, you mentioned that endorphins aren't just about physical pain relief.
Right.
They also play a role in reducing stress and boosting our overall mood.
Absolutely. Endorphins have this amazing ability to change how we perceive pain and stress. It's like they help us power through challenges and come out feeling stronger and more resilient.
Okay, so how do we tap into this natural superpower? Give us the endorphin hacks.
Well, exercise is the classic way to get those endorphins flowing. Think about how you feel after a great workout.
Yeah.
That's those endorphins flooding your system.
I'll be honest, I'm not always a huge fan of exercise, but if I know it can boost my mood, that definitely makes me a lot more motivated. Now, the research also talks about laughter as a way to release endorphins.
Oh, absolutely. Laughter is truly the best medicine. When we laugh, our brains release endorphins, which reduces stress hormones and boosts our mood. It's like a natural antidepressant.
So finding ways to laugh more is essentially a happiness hack. I love it.
Yeah.
Are there any other surprising endorphin boosters?
Well, believe it or not, spicy food can actually trigger endorphin release. When we eat something spicy, our brains kind of think it's a mild form of pain,
Okay.
which then causes our brains to release endorphins to counteract that sensation.
Wow, I had no idea. So all those spicy curries I eat,
Yeah.
those are actually good for my mood. That's amazing. Now, you mentioned dark chocolate again as an endorphin booster. I'm sensing a pattern here.
Dark chocolate really is like a happiness superstar. It has compounds that can stimulate those endorphins,
Really?
giving us a little mood lift along with that great taste.
All right, I'm now totally convinced that dark chocolate is a health food. So we've got exercise, laughter, spicy food, and dark chocolate as endorphin boosters. Anything else?
One other thing the research mentions is the power of music. Listening to upbeat, inspiring music can actually trigger those endorphins,
Right.
uplifting our mood and reducing stress.
Oh, that explains why I feel so good when I'm belting out my favorite tunes in the car.
Exactly. Music is incredible.
Yeah.
It taps into our emotions and can really influence our brain chemistry.
Yeah.
It's a powerful tool for boosting happiness.
I agree.
Uh-huh.
Okay, so we've covered a lot here. Dopamine, serotonin, oxytocin, and endorphins, all these chemicals that are essential to our happiness.
Yeah.
But now I'm curious, how do we take all of this knowledge
Right.
and put it into practice in our daily lives?
Well, that's where the idea of routines comes in.
Perfect. We're going to dive into routines and so much more in the next part of our deep dive into happiness.
Welcome back. It's incredible how much control we actually have over our own happiness when we understand the science behind it.
I know, right? It's like we've unlocked some kind of secret code. Now we've talked about these amazing happiness chemicals.
Yeah.
But how do we actually incorporate them into our daily lives?
Yeah.
The research you sent even has some sample routines,
Right.
which I'm super excited to unpack.
Yeah, routines are really great for this. It's like creating a structure for well-being.
Okay, so let's take a look at this morning routine that the research highlights. It suggests starting the day with some sunlight, a healthy breakfast,
Mm-hmm.
and a little bit of exercise.
Yeah.
What's the reasoning behind that?
Well, remember how we talked about sunlight being a big serotonin booster? Starting your day with even 10 minutes of sun can set you up for a more balanced and positive mood. It's like your natural mood stabilizer even before you've had coffee.
Oh, that makes so much sense.
Yeah.
I've definitely noticed I feel better on those days when I get some morning sunshine. Now, what about the healthy breakfast part of the routine? How does that tie into happiness?
It's all about giving your brain the fuel it needs, those nutrients to function at its best. Remember how we talked about tyrosine being a precursor to dopamine?
Yeah.
Well, a breakfast that has lots of protein and healthy fats can give your brain the tools it needs to produce those good chemicals.
So it's not just about being full and energized, but really prepping your brain for like optimal happiness chemistry. I like that. Now, I have to admit, I am not much of a morning workout person,
Yeah.
but the research does emphasize that a little exercise to start the day is important. Why is that?
Well, as we discussed before, exercise is amazing for getting those endorphins going.
Right.
Even a quick walk or some stretching can get those mood boosters and painkillers flowing. It sets you up for a more energetic and positive day.
All right, I'm convinced. I'm going to try adding all three of those to my morning routine.
Yeah.
Sunlight, a good breakfast, and some light exercise.
Yeah, sounds great.
It's also the perfect recipe for a happy and productive day. Now, the research also has a midday routine. It includes things like taking breaks, connecting with other people, and practicing gratitude. Why are those things in there?
Well, you know how by midday our energy can start to dip and stress can build up?
Oh, yeah, definitely.
That's why it's so important to take a break, just to recharge and reset. Stepping away from work or whatever you're doing, even for a few minutes, can make a world of difference.
I am so guilty of working through lunch and just powering through the afternoon without taking breaks. I got to work on that.
It's important.
Now, the research also talks about how important it is to connect with people during those midday hours. Why is that good for our happiness?
Well, remember oxytocin, that connection hormone?
Yes.
Just taking a little time to connect with people you care about, whether it's a quick phone call, a lunch date, even just chatting with a coworker can boost your oxytocin levels. That helps reduce stress and you get those feelings of belonging and well-being.
It's so easy to forget about those little moments of connection when we're so busy with work and everything else.
Yeah.
I'm going to try and be more conscious about making time for that.
Yeah, it's important.
Now, what about practicing gratitude as part of that midday routine? We talked about gratitude journals earlier, but are there other ways we can work gratitude to our day?
Gratitude doesn't have to be this big formal thing. It can be just taking a few moments to appreciate the good things, Maybe it's a really delicious lunch you're eating, or the sunshine, or even just the friendly barista that made your coffee. It's those little things.
I love that. Okay, so that midday routine is all about taking those breaks, connecting with others, and practicing gratitude. What about the evening? What does the research suggest we do to unwind and get ready for a good night's sleep?
The evening routine is all about creating calm and relaxation.
Okay.
To get your mind and body ready for sleep. The research suggests disconnecting from technology, doing things you find relaxing, and having a consistent bedtime routine.
I will admit that I am totally guilty of scrolling through social media right before bed, which I know isn't good for sleep.
Yeah.
What's the science behind that? Why is it good to disconnect from technology in the evenings?
Well, that blue light from our phones and computers, it can actually mess with our melatonin production. That's the hormone that regulates our sleep cycle.
Right.
So if we disconnect from technology for at least an hour before bed, we give our brains a chance to wind down naturally.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
I'm going to make a real effort to put the screens away and maybe read a book or take a bath instead. Now, the research also mentions doing relaxing activities as part of that evening routine. What are some examples?
It really depends on what you find relaxing.
Oh,
it could be reading, listening to calming music,
right,
taking a warm bath, doing some meditation or gentle yoga. The key is to do things that help you de-stress.
I am a big fan of meditation. It always helps me calm down and feel more grounded. Now, the research also talks about having a consistent bedtime routine. What's the benefit of that?
A consistent bedtime routine basically tells your body that it's time to start winding down and getting ready for sleep. By going to bed and waking up around the same time every day, even on the weekends.
Yeah.
It helps regulate your sleep cycle, which leads to better sleep. And when you sleep better, you feel better during the day.
Okay, so the evening routine is about disconnecting from technology, doing things you find relaxing, and having that consistent sleep schedule.
Yeah.
It all sounds like a recipe for great sleep and a happier, more energetic morning. Now, we've talked a lot about routines.
Yeah.
But the research also goes into some common myths about happiness. And I'm curious to get your take on those.
I'd love to debunk some of those myths. One of the biggest misconceptions is that happiness is like this thing we achieve.
Right.
Like, I'll be happy when I get that promotion, or I'll be happy when I find my soulmate, that kind of thing.
I think we've all fallen into that trap of thinking that happiness is out there somewhere in the future, just waiting for us.
Yeah.
But this research says that's not quite how it works, right?
Exactly. Happiness isn't a destination, it's a journey.
I like that.
And it's not about these big achievements, it's about the small choices we make every day.
Right.
And the habits that we build. Remember our dopamine discussion. Finding joy in the process, celebrating those little wins, focusing on growth, that's the key to lasting happiness.
So it's not about putting our happiness on hold for some future date. It's about finding those moments of joy in the everyday.
I love that. Now, another myth is this idea that some people are just born happy. We've all met people that just seem to have this natural positivity. But is happiness really hardwired into our genes?
Our genes definitely play a role, but research shows that we can actually rewire our brains to be happier. With consistent effort and by adopting good habits, we can literally create new pathways in our brain and increase our overall happiness levels, like exercising our happiness muscles.
Wow, that is so encouraging. It means that even if we haven't always been the most optimistic person, we can learn and grow and develop a more positive outlook. Our happiness isn't set in stone.
Exactly.
Now, how do we actually rewire our brains for happiness? What does that process look like? It all comes down to something called neuroplasticity, which is basically the brain's ability to change and adapt throughout our lives. By consistently practicing good habits, like the ones we've been talking about today. Things like gratitude, positive self-talk, spending time with loved ones, and taking care of our bodies, we actually strengthen those neural pathways that are associated with happiness.
Right.
And we weaken the pathways associated with negative emotions. It's like we're creating new roads in our brains that lead to greater well-being.
I love that analogy. So it's not about pretending that everything is perfect or ignoring the negative, but about choosing to approach things with a more positive attitude, even when things are tough.
Yeah.
It's like finding the silver lining. Now, the last myth I want to talk about is the one that equates money with happiness.
Oh, yeah.
We live in a society that often tells us material wealth is the key to happiness.
Right.
But does money really buy happiness?
Well, having enough money to cover your basic needs and reduce stress is definitely important.
Yeah.
Research shows that once you reach a certain income level, more money doesn't really make you happier. Remember our discussion about oxytocin and social connection? It turns out that things like strong relationships, having a sense of purpose, and good health, those are way more important for happiness than material things.
That makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
Money can give you some comfort and security, but it can't buy genuine connection or a sense of purpose. So it seems like real happiness is much deeper than external factors like money or accomplishments.
Yeah.
It's about cultivating inner peace, strong connections with people, and feeling like your life has meaning.
Absolutely. It's about living a life that aligns with your values, going after the things you're passionate about, and having a positive mindset. It's an ongoing journey of self-discovery and growth.
This has been incredibly insightful. But what happens when we do face setbacks or difficult times in life? How can we maintain our happiness when things get tough?
That's a great question. And that leads us perfectly into the next part of our discussion, building resilience and dealing with challenges.
Welcome back. We've been on quite a journey exploring this whole science of happiness.
Yeah.
From those brain chemicals to routines and debunking some common myths.
It's really amazing what we can learn about ourselves and our potential for happiness when we actually look into the research.
Absolutely. But life isn't always sunshine and rainbows, right? We all face those challenges and setbacks that can make us question our happiness. So how do we deal with those rough patches and build that resilience? That's what I really want to understand.
That's such an important part of this whole happiness thing. It's not about pretending the hard stuff doesn't exist. It's about learning how to bounce back from it.
The research you sent, it talks about this idea of learned optimism.
Right.
Which suggests that optimism, well, it isn't something we're just born with, but it's a skill we can actually develop.
Exactly.
Can you tell me more about that?
So, learned optimism is all about training our minds to focus on the positive and to see the good, even when things are difficult. It's about changing our perspective from, why is this happening to me? To what can I learn from this experience?
So it's not about denying the negative or pretending like everything is okay. It's about acknowledging the challenges, but choosing to see them with a more hopeful and helpful attitude.
Exactly. And one of the key ways to cultivate learned optimism is to challenge those negative thoughts. Remember when we talked about reframing our thoughts?
Yes. It's about questioning those automatic negative thoughts that pop up.
Right.
And trying to see things from a more balanced and realistic viewpoint.
Exactly. The next time you find yourself thinking negatively, stop and ask yourself, is this thought really true?
Okay.
Is there another way to look at this? What can I learn from this?
It's like you're hitting the pause button on that negative self-talk and giving yourself a chance to reframe things in a more positive way. Now, the research also talks about self-care when it comes to building resilience. Why is self-care so important, especially during tough times?
Self-care is all about prioritizing our well-being, physical, emotional, mental. It's about giving ourselves permission to rest, to do things that bring us joy and make us feel good. And when we're feeling stressed or down, self-care is even more important.
It's like you said before, filling up our own cups so that we have the energy and strength to face the challenges. Now, what exactly self-care looks like, well, it's different for everyone, right?
Absolutely. There's no right or wrong way to practice self-care. The important thing is to find what truly nourishes and replenishes you.
Okay.
For some people, it might be spending time in nature. Others might enjoy reading or listening to music or doing something creative.
I find that taking a long bath with some essential oils is really helpful for me. It really helps me unwind. Now, the research also mentions that it's important to seek support when we're going through something difficult. Why is that so crucial?
We humans, we're social creatures. We're not meant to deal with life's challenges all alone. Talking to friends, family, or even a therapist. It can give us that emotional support. A different perspective and guidance. And remember oxytocin, that connection hormone. Well, connecting with others during times of stress actually releases oxytocin, which can reduce anxiety and make us feel safer and more supported.
It's a good reminder that we don't have to go through things alone. There are people who care and want to help. Now, as we wrap up our deep dive into the science of happiness, I'm curious, what are your thoughts on what really creates a happy life? Is there like a magic formula?
I wish it were that easy. Happiness is complex. It's not about feeling blissful all the time. It's about experiencing the full range of emotions, the ups and the downs.
So it's about finding balance, enjoying the good times.
Exactly.
But also accepting and growing for the difficult ones.
It's about living a life that's true to yourself, going after your passions, nurturing your relationships, and taking care of yourself, mind and body. And it's also about remembering that happiness isn't a destination. It's a journey. It's an ongoing process of growth and learning.
And we have the power to influence that journey. We can choose to be happy through the choices we make each and every day. It's pretty empowering when you think about it.
It really is. And remember, what makes one person happy might not work for another. So be open, experiment, and figure out what truly works for you.
Embrace that process of self-discovery. And let yourself grow and change along the way.
And never forget, You deserve to be happy. You have the power to create a life that is full of joy and purpose and meaning.
It's all about making those daily choices to cultivate a more positive and fulfilling life.
And it's about believing in yourself and knowing you can create the life you want.
Because at the end of the day, happiness isn't something that happens to us.
Right.
It's something we choose.
And it's a choice we can make every single day.
This has been such an incredible exploration of happiness. I feel so inspired to take charge of my own well-being. Thank you so much for all your expertise and sharing your insights.
My pleasure. And remember, there are so many resources out there to support you on your journey. Don't be afraid to ask for guidance or inspiration or reach out for support.
And to everyone listening, thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. We hope you've gained some valuable insights and are feeling inspired to create more happiness in your own lives.
Until next time, may your journey be filled with joy, meaning, and of course, lots of happiness.